Welcome back, viewers, to the channel Riding the Islands with Harriet. Today I thought I'd go through some useful tips and tricks about riding in the Philippines, and so I'm going to start off with buying a bike. What type of bike do you think you need, or what type of bike is going to suit you? Now, in my video with Mark Thornton on Every Man's Got a Story, I went through each one of my bikes that I bought in the Philippines and talked about the suitability and the type of riding, but I can expand on that, or if you need any questions about a particular type of bike, just let me know. But there's lots of different bikes in the Philippines. I generally go for a brand name bike, a Honda, Yamaha, only just for the pure sense that I just don't want any trouble and I want a warranty. Now the local bikes like Rusi are good bikes as well, and you can get warranty with them as well. So think about what type of bike you want to buy. Now, when you decided what type of bike you want to buy, you need to go to a dealer or a shop and buy the bike. So I just want to talk to you a little bit about that, because I've bought 5 bikes so far in the Philippines, and I found that that's a very interesting process. So I've gone in there, I've had my card. I think I can just pay on the card, and they'll subtract that from my bank account, but it doesn't work like that. Every bike I've bought, they want cash, right? And it's just, when you're talking about, say, a Honda ADV, that's 148,000 pesos cash. Now, most ATMs in the Philippines, you can get 10,000 pesos out at once. So you're going to maybe be up to going for, to the ATM lots of times, and that may incur, like in my case, a $5 transaction fee each time if you're using an international bank, or if you're transferred and you've got a Filipino bank account, then it's not so bad, but there's a limit. I think it's about a 50,000 peso limit on the day. So when you go to buy your bike and you're all excited like I was, if you don't have the cash with you, you're not going to ride the bike out of the showroom, unfortunately. The other way you can do it is do a bank transfer. So the business will give you their banking details and you can transfer it. Now, international, I tried that to an international bank. I transferred 380,000 pesos from my Australian bank account into a business bank account, and I thought, oh yeah, it's great. I went to Bohol and I was waiting in my hotel room thinking the money's cleared, and I get a message from my bank 5 days later saying, what's this transaction about? Give us more details, etc., etc. So it was a headache. Ended up, I asked a friend of mine, he went and got the cash out, paid a branch in Dumaguete. I ended up getting the bike, but just be aware that when you go to buy a bike in the Philippines, it is cash. So you need to have the cash or a bank transfer, which may take 2 or 3 days. No big deal. So that's important to know. When you're buying a second-hand bike, it's probably the same situation, but when you're buying a new bike, it's fairly straightforward. They give you the free registration for a year. They give you free insurance most of the time for a year. Now the insurance, the registration, I'll start with the registration. They give you a temporary plate, and it's called for registration. In the Philippines, they're what you could say a little bit behind in registration. It's like about 11 million motorcycles behind in registration. So I bought a bike in February. I got the actual registration number some 4 months later. So on a rule of thumb, it takes you about 4 months to get the registration number. Now, it's illegal to ride around on a bike without a registration number, but everybody does it. And I've ridden around Cebu, Negros, Bohol, and come back here and never been pulled up. But I've been warned, if the LTO, the licensing authority, pull you over, they can give you a 10,000 peso fine. And if you don't have that spare change in your wallet, they could probably take your bike until you pay that money. So it's a bit of a headache. Some foreigners buy the bike and just park it for 4 months. No, you don't have to do that. You can use it straight away. So just think about that with registration. And the insurance, interestingly enough, it's fully comprehensive. Well, it covers the damage to the other vehicle if you hit the other vehicle, but it doesn't cover you for theft. So what you need to do from a theft preventive point of view is to either buy yourself a little disc lock or something, or just be aware of where your motorcycle is, lock it up. You can buy a chain or whatever. So generally I haven't heard too many stories about bikes getting stolen, but again, it depends on the bike that you're purchasing, all right? So don't mind me as I'm just tapping my iPad to go through the list of topics we're going to talk about. When you get the receipt for the bike, keep it under the seat. If you don't have the registration papers, you need the receipt to prove that you're the owner, especially when you're going to go into Ireland. Say, for example, Doonagady to Siggy Hall. You need to show that you're the owner of the bike, and when you go through the port system, the Coast Guard will stamp that, your receipt to say you're the owner, and you show it at the other end. So always keep your receipt, or a copy of your receipt at least. Maybe keep the original at home. Keep a copy on your phone, just so you can access that, because they normally need it, but keep a copy of that receipt. Services, bike services, well look, they come with free services that are, from a labour point of view anyhow, the free labour, you have to pay for the oil. So the first service is at 1,000 kilometres, the second one could be 4,000 kilometres, then they go up from there. It's generally just oil first up. Generally oil first up, and it costs about 310 pesos. Interestingly, I did a service on my Honda the other day, and they gave me the bottle of oil back, and I thought, oh yeah, maybe they just gave me a little bit in the bottom, and when I got home I realised that they gave me the old oil, so they didn't want to dispose of it. It's the first time it's happened to me in the Philippines, but now I've got to dispose of the old oil, and being a semi-conservative, where do I put it? So just be aware of that as well. Also with that for registration, when you're island hopping, I wouldn't be going, I've been advised, don't go to like Mindanao, because the LTO are very, very active then if you don't have the registration papers. And even though they know they're 11 million behind of processing, or they don't have any paper for the certificate, they've run out of paper for the certificate, they say those guys on the side of the road, they don't care. They'll just fine you the 10K. I haven't heard of anybody being fined 10K, but they warn you about it. Bike safety. Now, interestingly, all the bikes I bought from the dealers, none of the dealers have a working tyre gauge, right? So what I did is I bought my own over from Australia, and that's a good quality tyre gauge. You can buy them in the Philippines. You need to check the tyre pressure before you start riding your motorcycle, because a lot of the bikes have been sitting around in the dealership. They don't have a tyre pressure gauge. Tyre pressures are very, very important to tyre wear, safety, everything. So get yourself a tyre pressure gauge, or at least if you don't have one and you're in the Doonagady area, get your bike, ride it straight to the Shell service station on the National Highway going out towards Bakong, and the Shell service station, they have a working gauge there, and they have a guy, you give him 5 pesos and he'll put the right tyre pressure in there. So that's really, really important as well. Helmet. Now, I value my head, even though it's a bit of an ugly head, but I still value my head, and I wear a good helmet. So I bought one over from Australia. I would advise you, if you're going to move to the Philippines or spend any time here, buy a good helmet. The ones, and there's a good helmet over there. The plastic ones that they give you, they're okay. But again, your head hits the ground. What's your head worth? You want a helmet that really protects you well. And then also, my good helmet is really comfortable. The visor works really well. The visor doesn't scratch up easily like the cheap plastic ones. Most of the dealers, you will get a free helmet, a free jersey, and 100 pesos of fuel. And it's about roughly 80 pesos a litre. So you'll get enough to get to the next gas station or service station, if you call. So just be aware that, get your bike, get your helmet. If you have your own helmet, that's even better. You can buy good helmets in and around the shopping centres. I paid 10,000 pesos, about $200 US, for a full face helmet that's good quality composition. Again, think about it. What's your head worth? All right. As far as other PPP on the bike, jackets and full pants and gloves and all that. Remember, the Philippines is hot. It's stinking hot country, and it's very humid. So I've ridden with a jacket on and a back brace and all of that. Depends what I'm doing. Most of the time I don't. I know it's a bit silly, it's a bit of a gamble, especially me having a safety background, but you've got to be practical. And I think, I can always, my skin's okay. If I break an arm or break a leg, well, it doesn't matter really if I'm going to wear long pants or whatever. Gloves I wear sometimes. If you do come off, that's gravel rash, and things like that. But your head is the most important thing, right? An arm's always going to mend, a leg's always going to mend, skin's always going to grow back. But just, I implore you to buy a good helmet, protect your head. All right, the road conditions. The road conditions in the Philippines are different. So you're going to get bumpy roads, smooth roads, gravel roads, mud on the roads, or all sorts of road conditions. So you need to sort of consider them and obviously ride appropriate to the road conditions. When it rains here, it rains, it buckets down. So sometimes at night, if you're riding, we rode home the other night from a place, and you can't always see what's flooded and what's not flooded. So the old rule of thumb is ride in the middle of the road if you can, away from, and the road goes to the left or to the right, so that's a natural curve. So ride in the middle when it's raining and just ride to the conditions. Traffic can be good, it can be crazy, it can be really, really busy. I think again, just ride to the conditions of the traffic. Don't go crazy and try to overtake everything, and just slow and steady wins a race, I think, in the traffic. And use your horn. It's horn etiquette. So the horn is a warning device. So if people are trying to cut in front of you or whatever, you need it, use the horns. Now I always advocate to get some good twin horns on your motorcycle first up. So you've got that loud sound so they can hear you, because the little beep beep sometimes doesn't cut it, and it's your safety and your pillion passenger. If you've got a pillion passenger on the back, it's his or her safety as well. The police. Okay, so the police, they do checkpoints here. So you might pull up, and I got pulled over in the first 3 weeks I was here, and they said, "Do you know why we pulled you over?" And I said, "No." And they said, "Well, you don't have covered shoes on." I said, "Well, I didn't know that." So you've got to wear covered footwear. Now it could be a pair of joggers or whatever you want to wear, but it's supposed to be covered. A lot of people here use those Crocs, those rubber Crocs. They're covered at the front. It does. Interesting, the police officer showed me a list of the things that they can fine you for, and one of them was for wearing singlets. So you're supposed to have a collar with sleeves on it, so they can fine you there. We're talking fines of 500 pesos or whatever, but so yeah, it's a couple of things. Mostly the police, they're not going to chase you for speeding, they're not going to chase you, it's mainly checkpoints, and at checkpoints they would want either proof of registration. Depends who's manning. If it's just the police and not the LTO, then they just want to see your license. Now when we talk about licenses, you need a motorcycle license. Okay, so if you're coming from the States or Australia or England, you actually can use your own license. That license is valid for 3 months. After 3 months, you need to convert it to a Filipino license, and they just, you pay some money, you go down there, you can pay somebody to help you through the process, or you can just wait yourself, go through the process, but you've got 3 months. Or if you've got an international license as well, that's handy, and that's valid for 12 months. Okay, the licenses. Always carry a copy of your license, if not your original license, but carry a copy under the seat with your receipt of the bike. Speed. Okay, speed varies to the conditions, but generally when you're getting around the Philippines, if you're out on the highway a little bit, I think between 70 and 80 kilometres an hour is good. It's still fast enough to get where you want to go, but you still have enough time to brake if some of the obstacles come out, and I'll talk about obstacles in a minute. But 70 to 80, in town it varies. Just go with the flow of the traffic. You've got to be prepared to just take a breath, relax, and just go with the flow, because things don't happen. The drivers here are invariably very slow. You can come across drivers who are super, super slow, super cautious. So you just bear with it and just take that breath. Obstacles. When I talk about obstacles out on the road, you've got cats and dogs and people and tricycles and trucks and everything that there is out there. That's an obstacle. So again, you need to drive defensively. You need to think about looking ahead on the road. You don't get distracted. You're not turning around looking at things. You need to be, you're riding a motorcycle, so it's your safety. Okay, so obstacles. So at night time, there's obstacles where you're riding along and suddenly a bike will appear in front of you, but it's got no tail light. So it's really scary. So, you want to put your spotlights on so you can see where you're going and see the obstacle, but then you've got cars coming towards you, and if you put your high beam on, they're going to flash you, and so it's really tricky. So you can't go fast at night, guys or girls, right? You've got dogs sitting on the road, running across the road. You've got bicycles, motorcycles, cars, trucks, and a lot of them, especially motorcycles, do not have a rear tail light. And I don't know why. I've got no idea why. Maybe they just don't check. Maybe they think about it saving money. I've got no idea. But it's a really big obstacle, so you need to be aware of it. The other obstacle is roadworks. So nighttime roadworks, they don't have the flashing lights to warn you of it. So you really need to stick in the middle of the road, because there's a lot of roadworks on the right-hand side that you can just run straight down into a hole if you're not concentrating. So be very careful of those obstacles as well. The weather, it can rain at any time. I mean, it's hot during the daytime, so you should use, some sort of sunscreen, especially on your nose and your face. A lot of people use scarves or bandanas to protect them. Sometimes I use a jacket to protect my arms from the sun, long pants from the sun. But generally what I try to do is, if I'm going to go somewhere, I'll leave early in the morning. So I'll get three or 4 hours riding done, from 6 to 9 or 7 to 10, 7 to 10 or 11, and that's it for the day. I'll stop somewhere cool, and then I might have to do an hour here or half an hour there, but I'll cover up. And it's really important because it gets so hot. And when you're going along and it's heat, if you're not hydrated properly, and I don't mean beer, but if you're not hydrated properly with water, or sometimes I just use, buy a bottle of Gatorade from 7-Eleven. You can buy the bigger ones. That'll help, get you hydrated, or some of the other hydration drinks. So you really got to be aware of the sun and the heat in the Philippines. Don't just think, if you're wearing a jacket especially, you can just get on and ride all day, because you need to be aware of that. You're losing a lot of, perspiration as you're going along. Also, what we carry on our bikes is a wet weather jacket with a hood. I don't wear the wet weather pants, but the jacket stops you, because that rains pretty hard, and that can hurt your body. So you keep it dry. The other thing is, if you've got like a waist bag or a shoulder bag where you're carrying your passport or your phone or your money, you put a wet weather jacket on over the top. It keeps that dry, especially your bike keys. So you need to take your bike keys out of your pocket, put it in somewhere where it's going to be dry. I use just a zipper pocket in my wet weather gear, and it's got a hood on it as well, so I put the hood on and then put my helmet on. So just think about that as well. Breakdowns. If you break down, I've had a flat tire before. I've got an emergency pump that I use. You can buy the cans of tire inflator. That's probably a good idea, or you can buy yourself a puncture kit. So if you spin the wheel and you can see where there's a nail, you take the nail out, have a little pair of pliers, take the nail out. You can have the rubber tube kits that you can, you've got a couple of devices where you can clean the hole out, put the rubber in there, seal it. It's good enough to get you through to a vulcanizing shop. But this is a little pump that I've got here, so it doubles up as a power bank as well. It's got a little connection here. You can just pump in, whatever PSI you want, and it'll get you out of trouble. About 1,000 pesos, so I found that I carry that on the bike as well. It's a good thing. But breakdown, generally, there's people everywhere. So it just depends where you are. Even if you're in the mountains, there's people going past, so they may help you, get to a vulcanizing shop if you've got that. Providing you've got a newish sort of bike, you're not going to really break down. If you buy a second-hand bike, you're more likely, if you don't know the history and it hasn't been looked after well, you may have a breakdown with the engine or whatever. So it's just up to. But there's lots of little motorcycle shops around. Just depends where you are. Parking. I want to talk about parking. So parking. When I first bought my NMAX, I took to a shopping centre with a mate of mine. He said, "Oh, we'll just park here," and there are parking boys there, and you pay them 5 pesos, and they park your bike, and sometimes they put a bit of cardboard on your seat, so that when you come out, the seat's not hot from the sun. But just be very careful with your motorcycle and parking, because what happens is they try to squeeze as many motorcycles in as possible so they can get as many 5 pesos as possible as they can. That's how they earn a living. You've got to tell them not to touch your motorcycle or to leave enough room, because they don't really care. Maybe that's just them. I've seen, my bike got scratched the first day, and the guy says, "Oh, so sad, so sorry, bad luck." And I love my motorcycle, so I was really pissed off. So just be careful where you park, and engage the parking attendant. So maybe give him 10 pesos if he looks after your bike. But generally, it's good. You can just leave your helmets on there, even the expensive helmet. I leave my helmet on there. Those guys or girls look after them very, very well. You come back out, they take the cardboard off. You've got a cool seat to sit on. 99 times out of 100, it's a great experience. But just be careful about them squeezing your bike in. And when you come back in, the other thing is where you park. You've got to be careful about that. People aren't going to park behind you and block you in. That happens quite often. So just put a little bit of thought where you're going to park, that you've got a clear exit out. You try to do the right thing and park up there, and suddenly you've got 5 bikes behind you and you can't get out. So, parking's really important. Those fees. If the guy doesn't look after my bike or show up when I'm actually there, or put cardboard on my bike, or help me, I don't give them anything. Right? You get a lot of these ones who are unofficial. It's just an unofficial job, and they'll come in there and they'll just stand there and sort of put their hand out for money. If they haven't helped me at all, haven't put the cardboard, haven't guided me, haven't helped me get back into traffic, I give them nothing. Call me mean if you like, but bad luck. Pillion passenger. Pillion passenger is somebody on the back. So you might have a partner, a friend, or whatever you have on the back. You've got to have a chat to them when they get on the back. You're going to tell them a couple of things, right, that I've found out, right? Tell them not to move around, because the sooner they move around, that moves the motorcycle around. Tell them when you stop, when you're going to stop, they can squeeze their legs in. So they squeeze their knees together on the bike. That holds them. They don't slide forward, hit their helmet into your helmet. We've all probably had this, if we've ridden motorcycles for a while, we've all probably had this happen. So, educate your pillion passengers is really, really important. And that's about it. That's about the tips and tricks that I've gone through. If you want any more information on any additional or anything I've spoken about today, drop me a line, either on the YouTube channel, Riding the Islands with Harra, or you can my email. You can email me at hocuspocus@gmail.com. So I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've got some tips out of it. One last thing I want to talk to you about: first aid. Okay, so I always anticipate, what happens? What happens out on the road if I fall off? Okay, have I got a band-aid? What happens, so I've made a bit of a first aid kit here. I'll go through a couple of things with you, just to see. Now these are all available locally. I've got some betadine. So betadine is really good. This is just the tube of betadine, so it's really easy to use. Not very clean, but just use your finger, put a bit on there, and you can put that straight on any little cut or anything like that. I do have some cotton buds, some bandages, some sticky bandages that you can buy. These about 8 pesos each. They're really good. Also I have some lip balm. So lip balm. I went for a ride one time and I got a blister on my lip, and it was very uncomfortable. It lasted for about a week because I didn't think about that PPE, that protective equipment that I'm going to use. So put the lip balm on. Again, try to avoid riding in the direct sun. I've got some scissors, some tape, and these are really good. These are like camphor stick-on pads for any pain. So if you've got a pain in the shoulder like me, you can put that on. It relieves some pain. The other thing is a little pair of scissors. And if you get like you've fallen off, you've got a large wound, you need to stop that bleeding. So I've been around to all the pharmacies and I can't find anywhere like a thick gauze pad that you can just put on and stop the bleeding. So I've been a little bit creative here. I've used a woman's pad, obviously clean, sealed. You can use that in an emergency situation. Just whack that on a wound, on your arm anywhere, and then just tape it up. At least it'll stop the blood. They're designed to soak up blood, right? So that's a great little tip. So I use a first aid kit. Some people might say it's overkill, but I'm just sort of, perfect preparedness prevents poor performance, I think. So yeah, that's the last tip. So I'll end it now. Again, I hope you've enjoyed it, and we'll make some more videos soon. Thank you.